Welcome to Adobe Photoshop Lightroom Killer Tips, brought to you by the National Association of Photoshop Professionals. Here's your host, Matt Kluskowski.
And it's time for all the little tips and shortcuts that I know for the adjustment brush inside of Lightroom 2, and for that matter, they pretty much all work inside of Lightroom 3. I'm not even going to pretend to give you a number. Could be 8, could be 10, could be 12, could be 4. Could be 20. I don't know. It changes as I go along because I start to realize all the little things that are around this brush. So I'm not going to give you a number, but just it's pretty much everything I know about tips and tricks for the brush. Okay, so let's start off here with the first one, which is when you're in the adjustment brush, you'll see you got this little toggle switch over here. All right, nobody likes this view. All right, everybody clicks that toggle switch and they go over to this view. So much so, in fact, that in Lightroom 3, and if you have the Lightroom 3 beta, this view is now gone. You don't even have this option anymore. It's just inside of this view. So make sure you're over in this view. Now, when you're actually using the brush, probably the most important shortcut keys I find are the right bracket key for making your brush larger and the left bracket key for making your brush smaller. Okay, so you can just very quickly make it larger or smaller without going over here to the size slider. And if you've got one of those mouses with a scroll wheel on it, which you hopefully should, you can just use your scroll wheel and that's going to make it larger and smaller as well. Now, if you hold down Shift, right or left bracket, you'll see that the outer line between the inner circle and the outer circle gets smaller and larger. That's the feathering. All right, and that line is to show you where that feathering is going to take place. So the closer it gets to the center, the closer the feather gets down to 0, meaning it's a very hard edge brush. As I do Shift right bracket, that feathering grows to 100%, means it's a very soft edge brush. Okay, so moving on. Let's say we go in here and let's actually do a couple more brushes. So you have a brush A, you have a brush B, which is just a preset. So A could be a smaller brush, and B could be maybe a larger brush. If you want a quick way to switch between them without actually having to click on them, just hit your / key. You'll see it switches between A and B. If you want a quick way to get to the eraser portion of the brush, then just hold down your Option key on Mac or your Alt key on a PC, and that switches you over into erase mode, which allows you to erase your brush strokes. Flow. If you want a quick way to set your flow, most of the time, honestly, I leave it at 100, but if you want a quick way to change it, just hit the letter 1 or the number 1 for 10, 2 for 20, 3 for 30. You get the idea, and 100 takes you back up to 100. Auto mask. Auto mask lets us paint around edges. So if I were painting along here and I wanted to make sure I didn't spill over onto a certain part of the photo, I could turn auto mask on. The keyboard shortcut for that is the letter A. All right, so that's an easy one. Just remember A for auto mask, and that turns it on and turns it off. All right, so let's talk a little bit about when we actually start to brush. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to start to, let's just paint the stairs a little bit. We'll just brighten them. Okay, so I've brightened the stairs a little bit here. When you do that, you're going to see that there's a little pin that gets put on it. And when you hover over that pin, you see an overlay. All right, well, if you want to leave that overlay on, just hit the letter O. O for overlay leaves the letter on. O for overlay turns it off. If you want to change the color of that overlay, just hit Shift O. And you can see it changes it to all these different colors. Okay, most of the time I leave it on red, but if you're painting over something red and you want to be able to see the overlay, then you might want to change it to a different color here. Now, if you want to hide the pin, because let's say you're working on a person's face and you drop that pin on somebody's eye, they're always going to see the pin on their eye. If you want to hide that pin, just hit the letter H for hide. All right, and let's actually turn the overlay off. So just hit the letter H for hide. You still see that there's some effects done by the adjustment brush. You're just not seeing that pin anymore. The biggest suggestion I have for you with this keyboard shortcut is remember it, because you're going to hit it today and you're going to hide the pin. And then a week from now, you're going to forget that you did that and you're going to wonder where your pins are. All right. And you're going to send me a nasty email saying, I know you told me something. So just remember the letter H will show it again, because you won't be able to select it and get back to it unless you can actually see it. Now, if you want to make another pin, so I've done an adjustment here, and I want to do another adjustment. I don't want to use the same settings over here. Just hit the Enter or the Return key. You could click New here, but the shortcut is Enter or Return. That takes focus off of that pin, and now I can come up here and start to do something else at some different settings. Now, it's good example here. So let's go ahead and also to delete a pin, notice I had that selected. All right, so I've got that one selected over here. If I hit the delete key, you get the little explosion and a little poof, and it goes away. However, when you are painting, so let's say I'm painting up here, and let's go ahead and darken this one. And let's say I want to go in a straight line. If I just hold down the shift key, shift goes in a straight line across. All right, no matter, you can see everything I'm doing down here, it's not doing it. It's just going in that straight line. And as you're working with the settings over here, if you want to ever reset things, don't forget the presets. This will just set everything to their 0 default, and it will just adjust your exposure. Same thing, brightness here. It sets everything to their 0s. If you want to set a slider, let's say you've done this and you've done this and all these different sliders, you want to reset a couple of them to 0, all you got to do is just double click their names, and it resets them back over to 0 as well. Another one for you is when, let's say I go ahead and I select this adjustment brush pin over here. All right, and I'll brighten that a little bit more and, you know, maybe add some saturation to it and even some clarity and things that really I don't think look very good on it. But the whole purpose is I want you to look, and I've made a bunch of adjustments. You'll see that you do have a pin over here. If you hover over that pin, okay, you'll see the overlay there. But the other thing you'll see is that little left-right kind of icon that shows over the pin. If you click and you drag to the right, it moves all the sliders proportionally. If you click and you drag to the left, it moves all the sliders the other way proportionally. So it doesn't just move one, and it doesn't move them all in the same increment. It moves them proportionally to what you had them set to already. Now, we're definitely nearing the end of my tip extravaganza here. The last thing I got for you is this little color swatch. If you click on it, you can tint whatever area that you're painting with. So I can, you know, if I wanted to add, and I'm just going to make it horrible, I'm just going to add a green tint to the stairs over here. But you can also click in here and then keep your mouse pressed down, but then move your cursor outside, and now you can start to pick up different areas from the actual image here. Okay, so this image is very red, so you can see it's already, you know, just picking up all these red colors. But if I had other colors in there, it would pick those up as well. One last thing, if you click on one of these swatches and you right click on it, all right, you can set whatever the current color you have. So let's say you use a color that's not one of these swatches, but you like to use these swatches because they have quick access instead of you digging around down here. If you just right click on one of them, you can set that swatch to the current color, and you can always come in here and reset the swatch or reset all the swatches. All right, so there you have it, folks. Every single tip, technique, shortcut, whatever you want to call it, that I know about the adjustment brush, and I'm sure I might have even forgotten a few, but hey, that's why I got the website. So stop by lightroomkillertips.com, leave a comment if there is a little trick or tip or shortcut or whatever that I did forget about the brush. My name is Matt Kloskowski. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll talk to you again soon.